In this video tutorial, we'll cover the user configuration menus for a Velocitec ProStart with firmware version 35. Firmware version 35 was released in late October of 2021, and this firmware is only available for the new Velocitec ProStart. We'll start by turning on the device. Then we'll press and hold reset to enter the user configuration menus. The first configuration menu is your local magnetic declination. You see declination scrolling across the bottom here, and the top line is DEF. That's shorthand for default. In firmware version 35, we added an auto declination lookup feature as the factory default setting. So your ProStart, when it first acquires a satellite signal, it looks up where in the world you are and it figures out your local magnetic declination, and it will use that when DEF is displayed when DEF is selected as the declination configuration. And if you want to check it or you want to dial in a different declination for any reason, you can do that using the line set buttons. So square goes up, triangle goes down, and the default selection is sandwiched between your local magnetic declination that the ProStart looks up. So we're inside right now. The ProStart doesn't have a GPS signal. It is defaulting to 0 before it knows where in the world it actually is. So if we go up 1, it goes to 0, then 1, 2, 3, and then if we go back down, it goes 3, 2, 1, 0, default, 0, -1, -2, so on and so forth. But we're happy with the way the auto declination lookup works, so we're going to go back to that. We're going to leave it at default. We're going to press the gun button, save the selection, and go on to the next configuration menu. The next configuration menu here is bow offset. This is the distance from the bow of your boat to the ProStart's mounting location. In version 35, we changed the increments for the bow offset from 1/2 meter to 1/10 meter. So in firmware version 35, you're able to be way more precise with your bow offset than you were with previous firmware versions. So we'll show you how this is done here. Again, you dial in the bow offset using the line set buttons. The square button goes up, triangle button goes down, and let's go to 1.7 for this example. And then we'll save the selection by pressing the gun button. This next configuration menu is your direction output. You have 2 options here, heading or cog. You see heading scrolling across, and then we can toggle between the two using either the line set buttons. Now we've got COG, of course. We're going to go with magnetic heading and save the selection using the gun button. This next configuration menu is distance to line, on or off. It allows you to turn off distance to line if you sail in a very restrictive class that doesn't allow that feature. If you do sail in one of those classes, we highly recommend you check with the organizing authority or the technical committee before you use a ProStart in One Design Racing. So that's this configuration menu. We're going to leave the bow off, or we're going to leave the distance to line on, and we'll press gun to save the selection, move on to the next menu. This is your distance precision. Distance precision in the factory default is set to 1/10 meters. Some users found that to be a bit too much information, and they preferred the way the ProStart Classic displayed only whole meters. So right now you see 0.0. That is indicating that the ProStart will show you distance to line in tenths of meters. You can change that to whole meters by toggling back and forth with either the line set buttons. So now we've got whole meters, now we've got tenths, whole tenths. We're going to leave it at tenths, press the gun button to save the selection, and move on to the next menu. This configuration menu is your heading offset. You see heading offset scroll at the bottom. If your ProStart is mounted off axis with the long axis of your boat, if it's out by a few degrees, you can dial in an offset using the line set buttons. Square goes up, triangle goes down, to rotate the compass in the ProStart so that it lines up with the long axis of your boat. We're going to leave it at 0 for this tutorial, and then we're going to press the gun button to save the selection and move to the next menu. This menu here is the bar graph output. You see the bar graph scrolling at the top, and then our current selection is scrolling at the bottom. The factory default for the bar graph is heel. The other option is shift tracking, and we can toggle between the two using the line set buttons. So now we've selected shift, or we can go back to heel or shift, and either line set buttons will change the bar graph output. Then we save the selection by pressing the gun button, and that takes us to the next configuration menu. It says D-level at the top. That is your compass damping. There are 3 options, 0, 1, and 2. So highly damped, low damping, and no damping, 0, 1, 2. And that just applies to the damping of your compass. We'll leave it at 0. We'll press the gun button to save the selection and return to normal operation. So those are your configuration menus for a ProStart with firmware version 35. Thanks very much for watching.